Halo is a series I just recently got into, and boy, I didn't know how much I was missing. I played through all the games and I'm ready to rank them all. This list excludes Halo Wars, the mobile games, and Halo Reach. Reach's reason for not being on the list will be explained in the description below. So let's just not waste more time and start the list with number 6.
Weapons free. Contact.
Halo 5 Guardians is a prime example of wasted potential, or well, at least this campaign is. Now let me get something straight, I do not hate this game. Halo 5 does do some amazing things with its arena multiplayer and Forge. I wouldn't even consider Halo 5 a bad game, but just a major disappointment. Coming right off the heels of Halo 4, 343 was worried. Many of the loud Halo fans had expressed their dislike for Halo 4's campaign and multiplayer, so 343 and Microsoft's first instinct was to completely separate themselves from everything they did with Halo 4. I wouldn't have minded that if the campaign had actually turned out to be anything outstanding. Instead, we are given easily the worst campaign in the entire series. The campaign was extremely underwhelming and I just didn't care for it at all. The new characters a la Fireteam Osiris were so underdeveloped and the story just sucked. The missions were nothing special, with only 2 missions and this 15 mission campaign really standing out to me. The rest just didn't impress me at all, they were generic or boring. I just didn't feel immersed into it for about 90% of the entire campaign. Even in the set pieces with the Guardians, I still just wasn't impressed. It actually felt as if the only way they could keep your attention was to just show something big or make you run from destruction. They also added these parts where you just walk around and talk to people to get to your objective, and it wasn't bad, but it's not like it helped the campaign either. It really sucks that Halo 5's campaign turned out this way, but they didn't help it either, it only kept getting worse. For example, they introduced this new villain called the Warden Eternal. Everybody hated the Didact from Halo 4, so they replaced him. That doesn't sound too bad, right? Except they make you fight him so many times, it starts becoming repetitive and feels like filler to pad the campaign. Oh yeah, and you love Cortana's emotional death in Halo 4, right? Well, no, forget that, because they throw it out the window and bring her back as the main antagonist. And to top it off, they ended it with a cliffhanger ending the campaign did not deserve. Listen, I can understand why somebody can like this campaign. When you compare it to other COD campaigns or Battlefield campaigns, except, well, Battlefield 1, it's actually pretty good in comparison. However, it's when you compare it to other Halo games, it starts to seem so lackluster and underwhelming, it sticks out. It's a shame. That's all it is, it's just a shame. It's a good thing that the multiplayer turned out the way it did, or Halo 5 would have been a complete bust. Alright, now the majority of the negatives with Halo 5 are done with. I'm glad, because now I can say Halo 5 has some of the best arena multiplayer in the entire series. I love how balanced it is. Everybody starts with just an assault rifle and a pistol with power weapons placed around the map, similar to Halo 2's multiplayer back in those days. The new Spartan abilities make matches fast-paced, which I really loved. I didn't mind the new addition of aim-down sights. I actually thought it was a pretty well thought out addition to the game because it pulls you out the second you get shot with it on. My only major problem with the multiplayer is that the maps aren't really memorable. All of them are symmetrical and they make for good combat scenarios, but none of them really stand out. To hopefully compensate for that, 343 added a new mode called Warzone, which promises some of the biggest battles in Halo multiplayer ever. This mode is fun but flawed. Oh, scratch that. Warzone Firefight is fun but flawed. I never got into Warzone or Warzone Assault, but I did sort of like Warzone Firefight very much. I think it's fun, over the top, and intense. Not the best firefight in the series, but it's pretty serviceable. I liked how the wrecks gave you some pretty cool stuff you could use in a match, but wrecks are random and can be bought through microtransactions, which is a bad business practice, but you could take that as you will. In conclusion, Halo 5 Guardians is a game that is only held up with its well-designed multiplayer and community features. The campaign is underwhelming in almost every aspect and was a lot of wasted potential. I still recommend this game, and I've still had a lot of fun with this game because of its multiplayer, but I wouldn't say you're missing much if you're only a casual Halo fan. Now, moving on to number 5.
Sir, I don't want to die out here. Look! What is that thing, Lieutenant?
We're landing on it.
I knew it. The Autumn's accelerating. Keys is going in manually.
Hands up, everyone. This is it. We're entering the ring's atmosphere in 5.
Sure you wouldn't rather take a seat?
We'll be fine.
I still have fingers to be crossed.
Halo Combat Evolved is the game that started it all. It may not be the best at anything when looking at its sequels, but it's still a great game that holds up really well today. Halo Combat Evolved's campaign is pretty epic for the most part. It brings in the huge open environments that first-person shooters nowadays don't even hold a candle to. The story isn't really deep or anything, it's actually kind of simple when you think about it, but it helps introduce this broad and huge universe the sequels, books, and movies keep expanding upon. The feeling of awe when landing on the Halo ring for the first time is something I haven't really experienced in gaming in a very long time. Mind you, this game is 16 years old now and is still outdoing shooters today. I didn't play it when it first came out. Heck, I wasn't even born at the time. I'm actually a pretty young person, but that doesn't change anything. I still thoroughly enjoyed the campaign even when the environment started looking identical. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Halo Combat Evolved's campaign feels timeless, as if somebody 20 years from now can play it and it will still have the same effect. Missions such as the Silent Cartographer and Halo are some of the best first-person shooter missions of all time, and it all comes from here. I can't speak of the multiplayer the same I can with the campaign. Although it is fun and very enjoyable to play with friends, it isn't perfect. First off, the pistol is too OP. That's an obvious one, but it's important. The pistol is so fast and accurate to kill people with, it's the main weapon people use. I use it, but that's because I have to. It's the only way to survive in a match. Also, am I the only one that thinks there isn't a perfect map size in this game? The maps, although are amazing, are either super big, super elevated, or super small. It just makes the selection of maps really hard in a local environment. But I find it annoying, but that could just be me. I don't think anybody else has this problem but me. However, this was Bungie's first attempt at making a first-person shooter multiplayer, and it was added last minute to the game, so I guess you can excuse them for these mistakes. Halo Combat Evolved is a great game in every sense of the term. It offers a fantastic campaign and a fun multiplayer. It also lays down the groundwork for the rest of the series, and its sequels are on the list. Now I wonder which one will be up next. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Whoa, cowboy! Chief! There!
Mayday! Mayday! This is the captain of the UNSC Infinity. Unknown entity has seized control of our ship. We're without power. We're on a collision course with an unidentified Forerunner planet.
Track its descent.
Marking. Impact predicted 77.8 kilometers due north. You know where he's heading.
Same place we are.
Halo 4 is a really strange game to me. I actually used to hate this game. It was before I really got into Halo, but I vowed to never play it again. I hated the idea of the Prometheans. I thought the campaign was boring and unfun, so I just never beat it on the Xbox 360. This was until I played through it again on Xbox One when I realized how amazing this game really is. Halo 4's campaign is seriously one of the best in the series. I loved exploring Requiem, as it was an alien world with environments never before seen in a Halo game. The actual Prometheans were cool, with the Promethean Knights having very cool looking designs, and they were also just a new alien species to fight. Although I still miss the Brutes and the Flood. I hope they come back for Halo 6. Come on 343, make it happen. As for the actual story, it was great. Cortana's rampancy was done very well within the narrative, especially with Jen Taylor, Cortana, and Steve Downes, Master Chief, best performance as their characters in the entire series. In fact, the voice acting was pretty on point with this game. Not like that's anything new to the series, but you know, it's still a good trait to have. I thought the Didact was actually a pretty alright villain. He didn't have much personality, but I wasn't expecting an amazing villain when walking into this game anyways. Although his final boss is literally just a quick time event, which is really disappointing, especially since the last level was one of the best levels in the entire game. Speaking of the levels, I like the majority of the levels in this game, such as Midnight, Infinity, and Requiem being some of my favorites. You know, for a first attempt at making a Halo campaign, I'd say 343 knocked it out of the park. It's actually one of my favorite Halo campaigns, and it sucks Halo 5's campaign didn't turn out the same way. Halo 4 isn't all perfect though. The main problems arise in its multiplayer. Although it isn't bad, it's probably one of or the weakest in the entire series. Let's just start off with the positives first. The gameplay is tight and the integration of the Promethean weapons are relatively smooth. But that's it. Now for the negative. Alright, well, the maps are unmemorable. That seems to be a theme with 343's multiplayers. The ordnance system is very COD-like and really cheap, especially when somebody drops in an OP weapon like the SAW. And that's where most of Halo 4's problems start to come into fruition. Its multiplayer feels like they were trying too hard to emulate COD. They added kill cams, ordnance, and loadouts, and it just really sucks they went that route. Loadouts feel so alien in Halo. It doesn't make the matches as balanced as they could be like in past games. But I'm not saying the multiplayer isn't fun. My friends and I have had lots of fun playing this multiplayer together. It just isn't as great as it possibly could have been because they tried to emulate COD. Oh yeah, and I never played Spartan Ops and I have no interest in it, so I can't really judge that part of the multiplayer. I also never dabbled with Halo 4's Forge, but I feel it's kinda weird that nobody ever talks about it, so I can't really judge that part either. Now listen, you must be wondering, hey, you said a lot more bad things about Halo 4, especially in its multiplayer, than Halo Combat Evolved. How could you possibly like this game more? Well, to me, it's really because its campaign is that groundbreaking. Yes, the multiplayer is one of the worst, or the worst in the entire series, but the campaign is phenomenal. I enjoyed it so much I marathoned it all in one day, and it's the only Halo I've done it for. But I can admit that if the story didn't turn out as well as it did for me, it probably would have been the worst Halo game in the entire series. Anyways, now it's time to move on to number 3.
out your pod! I take it back. Navy got its butt kicked. Hey, Romeo. Remember when I told you to shut your mouth? Yeah? Consider that a standing order. Captain, 15 clicks off the deck.
Stand by to adjust trajectory. On my mark.
What did she just say?
Mark.
We're way off course.
We're heading exactly where I need to go.
But we're gonna miss the carrier. Radiation! Covenant just set off a nuke?
No. The carrier's going to jump. It's a subspace rupture. You need to...
EMP! Losing power! Stabilize! They popped their chutes! We're going in hard!
Now, this may be a weird game to put this high on my list, for it doesn't have as much content as the other games did and they still charge full price for it. But I don't care. Halo 3 ODST is my third favorite Halo game in the series. To me, its lack of content doesn't make me like the game less. I see it as a departure to the series, taking a whole new direction from all the other games. Bungie really did good with this one. Although planned as a standalone expansion to Halo 3, it released as its own game. Yes, it doesn't have the content to justify that decision, but it basically feels like a different game from Halo 3. Instead of playing as the badass Master Chief, you play as a team of vulnerable ODSTs. They are shown to be human and very weak against the Covenant. Bungie even brought the health bar back from Halo Combat Evolved to reinforce this point. As for the story, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The story centers on a team of ODSTs separated due to a massive explosion while dropping into battle. You play as the rookie, but you also play as the whole team as well, frantically searching for your teammates to finally get out of the dangerous city of New Mombasa. New Mombasa in this game is very dark and gritty, which is very unlike its Halo 2 depiction of the city. This is reflected in the soundtrack as well. Halo 3 ODST also has a great assortment of characters which make up the best team in the entire series. A way better team than Noble Team from Halo Reach in my opinion. Yeah, I just said that. The hub world that you can explore in between every mission is another thing that makes it different from all the other Halos. Now, Halo 3 ODST isn't an amazing Halo game because it's different. That's not what I mean at all. It's just an amazing Halo game. The gameplay is solid and fun, dialogue is well written and voice acted, missions are well designed. Honestly, other than the lack of content and short length, this game is like zero flaws. But I can't actually see why Halo 3 ODST isn't high on most Halo fans' lists. I can see how people feel like it's shallow and not worth their time. But I simply can't agree with it. I love Halo 3 ODST's campaign from beginning to end, and its lack of content doesn't make me hate it more. It's a short but sweet Halo story, and I couldn't recommend it more. Now, let's move on to number 2. What you just saw and are currently seeing on screen right now is Halo 2's completely remade cutscenes for its anniversary edition in the Master Chief Collection. These cutscenes are gorgeous, just like the new graphics and the gameplay itself. I really recommend playing Halo 2's remake, especially if it's your first time playing the game or just wanting to revisit it on Xbox One. Anyways, Halo 2 is one of or the best Halo game by fans. It's such a big step up from Halo Combat Evolved in so many ways. Although it isn't my favorite game in the series because it's number 2 on my list, it's not like it's worse by much. I stated earlier in my list that Halo Combat Evolved had introduced us to this universe. Well, Halo 2 expands it big time, especially with its campaign. The campaign felt so much bigger than that of Halo CE. It was such a ride to play through. I had so much fun with this campaign, even though it was more linear than the game before. The introduction of the Arbiter as a new main character was something I loved. Keith David is perfect for the role, and it helps that Arbiter's character was written so well. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I liked how Arbiter got a lot more spotlight than Master Chief did. I think Halo 2 is more about the Arbiter realizing that his blind faith in the Covenant is wrong and unjustified over Master Chief just trying to save the universe again. The Brutes and the Prophets were also amazing additions to the Halo story. Tartarus was a great villain due to him just being a brute with blind faith as opposed to just a big, strong, generic bad guy. Bungie also added the series' favorite battle rifle into Halo 2 while ditching the assault rifle in favor for the SMG. Dual wielding was also added in Halo 2. To me, this is the greatest strength of Halo 2. It adds so much to the narrative and to the gameplay, it makes it interesting and new. However, the missions are really good as well. Many Halo fans had problems with the more linear level design, but it didn't bother me at all. I just remember missions like The Heretic, Regret, Delta Halo, and The Great Journey to change my mind on that fact. Yes, I know the open environments is what made Halo Combat Evolved special and different from other FPSs, but I feel the narrative completely made up for the linear level design. Plus, the anniversary version looked gorgeous, even the classic version looked gorgeous for its time, so that's an added plus. But we all know you can't talk about Halo 2 without talking about its multiplayer. This is considered the best multiplayer in the entire series, and I couldn't agree more. Halo 2 is easily the pinnacle of Halo's multiplayer, with Halo 3 and 5 coming closest to topping it. Man, where to start? Well, it easily has some of the best maps in the series. Zanzibar, Burial Mound, Ascension, and Lockout are all such well-designed maps for multiplayer. My problem with Halo 1's maps were the size, but Halo 2's remedies that completely. Maps range from small, medium, large, and elevated, which makes it perfect for picking maps for local play. The anniversary remakes of these maps were also good, and those are the ones I mainly played with. Halo 2's multiplayer is also super balanced. No more OP pistols, instead we get classic arena multiplayer. Something that doesn't really come back to the series until Halo 5 due to the others adding a new element like equipment or armor abilities, with equipment being the better one in my opinion. Halo 2's multiplayer to me has no flaws. It's so fun and so addicting to play. I can see why it was the most played game on Xbox until Gears of War came out several years later. In conclusion, Halo 2 is the game that cemented the series and legend. It improved upon so much from Halo Combat Evolved, it's insane. Not to mention, the multiplayer is legendary. Honestly, I thought that this was the peak of the Halo series. This was, of course, until I played my number 1 pick.
All ships, fire at will.
This is the way the world ends.
Come on, you all knew this was coming. Up until this point, my list had had a lot of choices that Halo fans may think are weird, such as Halo 3 ODST being up so high and Halo 4 being ranked over Halo 1. I don't regret those choices, and I'll never change them, but this is one thing I just couldn't disagree with. Halo 3 is easily the best game in the entire series. It feels as if Bungie was at the peak of their skills and wanted to end the series with the best game they could possibly make. They achieved that goal with one of the best, biggest, and awesomest shooters of all time. Okay, just getting this out here right now. Halo 3 has the best campaign in the entire series. There's no debate. I honestly don't know how anyone can argue that the other ones had a better campaign. Halo 3's campaign makes up for all of Halo 2's shortcomings. The linear level design is gone. Instead, it reverts back to the huge and open missions from Halo Combat Evolved. This worked out so well in the final product. I loved every single mission in this campaign, with the Ark, the Covenant, Cortana, Floodgate, and Sierra 117 being the best missions in Halo history. Let's not forget that badass finale, which had everybody smiling at their screens. Also, for the actual narrative, it was phenomenal. Bungie decided to sideline the Arbiter by not making him a playable character at all in this game. As much as I liked playing as him, I didn't mind at all. Master Chief's story was really interesting, so it wasn't a problem at all. The campaign was also epic, like really epic. Think of Halo 2's, but on an even bigger scale. Their narrative was also conclusive and had a feeling of finality throughout. Honestly, I could not get enough of this campaign, and I was actually pretty sad after I watched that ending. Flaws are non-existent within this campaign. I'd actually go as far as calling it a perfect shooter campaign, or well, the closest thing to it. Oh yeah, and lastly, Halo 3 had a damn good soundtrack, which was only a hair worse than Halo 2's in my opinion. Look, to some I may sound like I'm over-complimenting the campaign, that it isn't really as good as I'm saying, but it really is. I was surprised myself. Just play it again, or play it for the first time. Trust me, it will all be worth it. To be frank, I don't have much to say about the multiplayer without treading on what I've said before about past Halo multiplayers, so to avoid that and to not make this video longer than it already is, I'll just keep it brief. The arena multiplayer may not be a huge improvement from Halo 2's, but it's still very fun and competitive. The new maps were all stellar in design and created very cool combat scenarios. I especially liked the new equipment system and found it to be way better than the armor abilities added in Halo Reach. Armor customization was also heavily improved from Halo 2's, but Halo 3 also added a whole plethora of community features that is now standard in the Halo series. Forge, Theater, and File Share all came from this game. It's also crazy how Bungie continued to innovate on an already perfect formula from Halo 2. To conclude, Halo 3 is the peak of the entire Halo series. No game after it has managed to achieve the feeling of wonder and excitement captured by Halo 3. Bungie had promised to give us a Halo game we will never forget, and as you can see, it's a promise they kept. So, if you're at this point in the video, thank you so much. Thank you for sitting through this very experimental first video of mine. This video took so long to make, but I had a blast playing through these games and making the video, so it was all worth it. I'm sorry for any audio problems or music problems. I'm all still experimenting with this. Again, this is my first video. I hope you enjoyed it and didn't hate my opinion. This is Amadou's Reviews, and I'll see you next time.